think we're good.
All right, great. Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the May 3rd meeting of the New Canaan Board of Education. First, this evening, we have some minutes to approve. We're going to approve the first 2 minutes from April 12th and April 16th. April 29th, we realized those minutes were not sent ahead to the board yet. They'll be sent out tomorrow, so we'll add them to our agenda in the next meeting. So I'll do them separately because we have different attendance. So is there a motion to approve the April 12th minutes? Deanna, second. Penny, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. And then April 16th, can I have a motion to approve those minutes? Bob, second. Deanna, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, abstentions? Sherry, okay, thank you. Next is to review and approve this evening's agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Sherry, second. Penny, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Next is comments from the public. To ensure the public's right to be heard, the board has set aside time during the meeting for public comments. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to each subject. Is there anyone wishing to address the board? If so, please use the raise hand feature and Dr. Lutzy will move you over to speak. Okay.
Okay, I don't see any.
Don't see any. Okay. So we'll move right on to reports and recognition. Tonight we have a COVID update with Dr. Lutzy in the cabinet.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for coming together tonight. Couple of things for the COVID update tonight, and then I'll ask Dr. Krenti to talk briefly about testing as well, which just began with us. The Connecticut, New Canaan, and our region continues to see declines in cases. Just today, Governor Lamont gave some good news, said Connecticut is the first state in the country to have over 50% of its residents aged 18 and over vaccinated, fully vaccinated. So first in the country on that, which is wonderful. And the hospitalizations have continued to go down in Connecticut. And we're at the lowest point that we've been since November 3rd of 2020. So things continue to trend in really the right direction. And it's important to take a moment to say thanks and to appreciate and to recognize that this is happening because of everyone's hard work and adherence to mitigation strategies and being careful where we need to be and taking care of ourselves and each other. We also know, unfortunately, the world picture isn't so positive. What's going on in India, in South America, and parts of Europe are worrying. We're keeping an eye on that because we know now in the global world that we're in, we have to be sensitive to, or at least keep an eye on what's going on around the world in order to be prepared should we have to change course. But as it looks right now in Connecticut and in the tri-state region and even in most of the country, we're really doing well and on a good path, and we should feel good about that. So remaining focused, continuing to take a thoughtful approach to keeping our schools safe and open is going to, I think, get us across the finish line as we continue through the school year and work as hard as we can to keep our schools safe and open. The couple of other quick things I thought you'd be interested in knowing that we have the number of distance learners that we have. Approximately 97% of our students now are in person every day in our schools. So it's about 3% that are out on distance learning, what we call full-time remote or distance learning. That does include some students that are being quarantined. So that number moves, up and down depending on number of quarantines on the day that we check the number. But still, 97% in every day on average is really, it's very high. Let me say that, much higher than I think you would find in most other places. And again, I think it's a testament to the trust that we've earned with the community and that the good decisions we've made right along from the start. It's pretty evenly spread across the levels, the elementaries, SACs, and the high school, about the same number of kids. High school has a few more distance learners than the other levels, but not significantly. So I think that's more good news. Another thing, last week, the State Department issued their anticipated guidance for the fall in regards to remote learning for families. And what essentially their language was, they do not anticipate the need to require districts to provide an option for families to opt in to a voluntary remote program after this year. So essentially, as you know, this year in our reopening plans, we had to develop that option and make that available to all students and families if they chose to do a remote only program. And given where we are and look, the State Department working with the DPH right now, they don't anticipate the need to require districts to do that again next year. So we'll keep an eye on it, make sure nothing changes, but that was good news as well. And I think with 97% of our kids coming in, it shows, again, we're close to it at this point regardless. The quarantine guidelines, there was a email I sent out last week just to touch base quickly on those. As you know, quarantine's not required if somebody is either fully vaccinated or if they recovered from COVID within 90 days of the potential exposure, then they're not required to quarantine as long as they are asymptomatic, right? Anyone who doesn't feel well should isolate themselves and, until they feel better, of course. But that's just an important and a good note, and I'll get to the vaccination rates for us in the district in a moment. So our current expectations are, with exposure, that individuals would quarantine, excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, is that individuals would quarantine for 10 days if there's a potential exposure. Athletics was 14 days with a potential exposure, but we just recently reduced that to 10 days with a negative PCR test on or after the 8th day, right? So we shortened the quarantine for athletes. And the current CDC guidance is still a minimum of a 7-day quarantine with a test for students that travel to other states overnight for out-of-state tournaments. We're looking at a couple of these things directly with our nurses, with the doctors in town, with Jen in the health department to see if there's a way we can shorten the sport tournament quarantine, and if there's something we can do about our 10 days, maybe bringing that down to 7 with a test out option for students after the 5th day. Because we know, especially as we get to the end of the school year, every day is even more valuable because there are fewer and fewer of them left. So we are reviewing that and hope to make some decisions about that very soon. The vaccination rates in the district, we've had 100% of our administrators across the board vaccinated, 91% of our teachers vaccinated, and about 82% overall, and that includes every individual that a student could possibly come in contact with in the course of their day in school, which means, over 4 and 5 folks as they're going through their day has been vaccinated and fully vaccinated. So gone the course already of the whole thing. So I think we're doing very, very well. And we continue to keep an eye on that. And to offer opportunities for people to get vaccinated. We ran our clinic for students last week on Wednesday, had a pretty good showing. We realized that we had some extra spots, so we opened it up to surrounding towns. We had some students from Wilton and Darien, and even I think 1 or 2 from Westport come over as well to take advantage of that. And the second dose of the Pfizer for students will be made available, in the appropriate course, when it's due. So we have those already set up. If and when the CDC approves or the FDA approves the vaccine for 12 and up, then we're working with the health department and we'll look to run another clinic for anyone interested in New Canaan for those kids as well. And then if there's other high school students that have been on the fence or others that haven't done it and are ready to do it now, they'll be able to participate in that as well. So we're waiting for that approval. And then as long as we can get the vaccines, we will run another clinic. And with that, Dr. Krenti, if you want to share a quick update on how the testing is going and what's going on with this year's standardized test.
Sure. So I thought I would just kind of give everybody a quick overview about where we are in the state of Connecticut. So the federal government has asked all states to move forward with standardized assessments in grades 3 through 8 and 1 year in high school. And in the fall, states had the opportunity to submit a waiver request. The state of Connecticut submitted a waiver, and at the end of March, it was approved by the federal government. So in Connecticut, we will move forward with administering the Smarter Balance in English Language Arts and in math in grades 3 through 8 and the Connecticut SAT in grade 11. We'll also administer the Next Generation Science Assessments for students in grades 5, 8, and 11. So the waiver in Connecticut relates to the accountability system. So Connecticut will not issue summative ratings where schools are categorized on a scale of 1 through 5. For example, they won't identify schools as schools of distinction, nor will they identify turnaround schools. Additionally, the schools cannot be penalized if their participation rate falls below that 95%. So in years past, we've done a lot of education and really have encouraged everybody to participate, and we're continuing to do so for a variety of reasons. First of all, they do anticipate releasing scores publicly and aggregating the data. However, the results are going to look different because they need to reflect all that students have gone through during the pandemic. They're still working on how those results will look, and they'll continue to keep us updated. I think at this point, they're just in the process of collecting data, and they're trying to look at the participation rates, and they're also trying to look at the remote options. And I'll get into that in 1 second. So the results of the assessments are really there to provide information to parents, to educators, and the public about student performance, and really to help target resources and supports for our students. So as a district, we'll continue to analyze our results by grade level, by subject area, by subgroups, and even individually, like we've done in the past. And we'll continue to look at these results in combination with district assessments. So we know how our students have performed in the past. We know about where our students usually are in 3rd grade in English Language Arts, or where they are in 7th grade for math. And we'll never be able to do a comparison because there's no growth model. You know, the kids did not take the assessment last year. They can't have a growth model applied to them when they didn't take the assessment. So there's a gap year for these students. So we'll be looking at it from previous results. We'll have an understanding of which standards we might need to hone back in, which grade levels may have struggled, which subgroups may have struggled. And then our goal is really to provide those resources and those supports to those students, similarly to what we've done in the past. And we're certainly looking at a variety of options as that grant money comes in. Really, that grant money is supposed to be used for students that are in need to help accelerate learning, to work with different subgroups. So we're trying to really think out of the box of how we can help to support a variety of students within our district. So certainly the testing window has begun, and it will end on June 4th. On Tuesday, April 13th, our juniors took the Connecticut SAT. And on May 18th, the juniors will take the Next Generation Science Assessment. So we're a bit challenged this year with our juniors because all of our district devices have been administered to our 3rd through 8th graders. So we're in the process of pulling together our labs. And we're going to be using the variety of labs that we still have over at the high school. We're setting up our world language lab again, a couple other labs that we've had to break down. We're going to be setting up for the juniors to take the Next Generation Science Assessment. So they can't use their devices because they have to have a secure browser loaded on them. Several years back, we tried to put those secure browsers on, help the kids to get the secure browsers onto their devices. And sure enough, the day the assessment came around, the kids had deleted the secure browser. They couldn't find it. And so it was just too challenging. So we have to use our district devices to get them into a secure browser. So we're in the process of really trying to get enough devices so that our juniors can take this assessment and open up some of our labs. The assessment for our 5th, 6th, and 8th graders over at Saks began last week and will continue this week. And then our elementary students began today with their assessments. So in addition to giving the kids the assessments at school, the positive of having their own device is that we're able to test more children at one time. And it's done a nice test on our Wi-Fi system and our bandwidth over at the schools. And we're lucky in reporting that it seems to be holding out for us. So that's a good thing. One of the challenges is the students that are fully remote should also be taking the assessment. So we've reached out to all the remote families and we've offered them the flexibility to come into school if they'd like to take the assessment at school. We would provide them, a small environment where they can spread out and feel very safe. And if they choose not to come into school, then we have to provide them the assessment through remote testing. So they actually go into the login system and the entire system has set up a way that we can actually monitor them. So that does actually require more staff though, because our core teachers are going to be assessing the kids during their English block. And then we need to set up environments to do the remote students. So they ask us to try to keep those groups very small so that the proctor can monitor what the students are doing at home. So we've been communicating with the families who are remote. We've sent out guidelines to the families. And so far, everything seems to be going well. We have some families that have chosen to come into school. We've set up times for them to come into school to take the assessment. And then we have other families who are just taking the assessment remotely. And we have established proctors for them to do those assessments. So we are into our 2nd week of testing and things seem to be going well. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed that we can finish up the testing. Once again, it seems to go for such a long period of time, but really it's about 5 to 7 days for the student. And it's, about 60 to 90 minutes during those sessions. So we don't test the kids for longer than 90 minutes at the upper grades and probably about 45 minutes at the lower grades. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about the assessment or about the waiver.
Thank you, Dr. Krenti, and thank you, Dr. Lutzy, for all those updates. It's amazing that all of this.
Yes, the only other thing I'll add just very quickly, Katrina, I'm sorry, I think it's COVID related. Just to let you know, at this point, we have only 2 retirements that we're aware of in the district. And I think it may be COVID related because it might have accelerated some retirements maybe last year. So if that holds, it'll be the lowest that we've had in an awfully long time, at least a decade or more. So just letting you know that, then glad that we held the number on our anticipated retirements in our budget. So we should be okay there. But wanted to give that one last piece of info.
That's important to know. Thank you. Any comments, questions? Penny and then Bob.
I just had a question on our vaccination rates, and if we had goals or expectations as a district about where we would end up percentage-wise with all the staff and teachers in the district in terms of vaccination.
Well, yeah, and it's important to note these are self-reported numbers, and there's some that haven't reported, so there's certainly a margin of error there. So it may be higher than what we reported out. We just may not have heard back. Of course, we go into it hoping for 100% across the board because we do know and believe this is an important, probably the most powerful strategy to follow to put an end to the pandemic. They talk about herd immunity and all of that, but it's really our goal is to get as many people vaccinated as we can and to continue the messaging around the safety of it. We had a large webinar with Dr. Reed a few months ago where he spent very generously over 90 minutes first talking about the vaccines and how they were developed and how it works, and then answering any questions for folks. And helping them to understand how it was accelerated the way it was, what have you. So we're going to keep offering them. I really hope people keep taking us up on that. We also have the J&J vaccine available now locally. So I think that can help with some vaccine hesitancy where it's one instead of having to get two, a course of 2 shots. I think that helps people. But we're going to keep pushing until hopefully everybody gets it.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Bob?
I have 2 questions. One on the, I've got a lot of questions on the sports tournaments and exposure stuff. What was that? Where are we and where are you trying to get to on the quarantine rules?
Sure, for the sport tournament specifically?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I'm getting a lot of questions on that one specifically.
It's really challenging because the CDC carved this out in their guidance, and the Department of Public Health has adopted the CDC's guidance. And what the CDC says is if students' families travel more than 24 hours for a sports tournament, for the purposes of a tournament, then they should quarantine for a minimum of 7 days with a test out or 10 days without a test out. And so in my conversation with DPH to try to understand why they have this carve out that's different than, say, a family vacation to Florida or something.
Is that if exposed or no?
What's that? I'm sorry?
Not if exposed, just if they go to a tournament and come back.
Exactly. Just if they go and come back. When I asked them about why this is different than any other kind of travel, what they said was the expectation that when students and families go to tournaments, they're going to be spending most of their time off the field together with multiple households in the same setting. So they'll go to dinner together, they'll be spending the days together, on the sidelines, they'll be, in the hotels together. And so that assumption, they put this rule in place. What we're looking at is there a way, and I've got to sort of finalize the discussion. I think we can finalize it tomorrow, hopefully move forward. But is there a way to say, look, when you get back to Connecticut, take a test, get a negative test, and then come on in, instead of saying a 7-day minimum? I think that's a more reasonable standard to follow. And so I want to, try to get a thumbs up from the health folks before doing it. But
if exposed, but not if you're not. What if they get out of the state within 23 hours? Does it count? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is. It seems arbitrary, and it seems really. As long as people are following the mitigation strategies, right? So, let's not assume they're all going to be acting badly when they're out of state. Let's assume they're going to be following those protocols that everyone's been following, but put a layer of safety in with a test when they get back. And we can even help to facilitate those tests. So I think that's a more reasonable standard, and that's what I'm looking to move to.
So will you communicate that out as soon as you know? Because that one's getting hot. You got baseball tournaments, lax tournaments. Everybody's like, well,
oh yeah. And I was there, right? I did all these tournaments with my own kids. So I get it.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
All right. One other thing, sorry, Deanna. On the testing, Dr. Cranty, I know last year was a gap year, nobody tested, right? But you will have longitudinal data to compare at least grade over previous years, right? So we can look at, how our third graders this year did to third graders pre-COVID. Right?
Yes, that's correct. So we have that data. The test hasn't changed. The standards in which they're testing are the same. Right. So you wouldn't be able to compare cohort to cohort, but you certainly could look at how did fifth graders perform 2 years ago and how did fifth graders perform this year? Are there areas that they may have not done as well as they've done in the past? Are there areas that they continue to do well in? So that information would certainly be something that we would be analyzing and reviewing with the board once the results come in.
And you would have had to, say you had a third grader in previous years, right? They went from third, and now they're in fifth, right? And you would have that same progression. So you might not have a growth model, but you could see if the trajectory of the slope is sort of the same to cohorts in previous years, as long as you got the same standards and basically the same test, right? You could compare, even though there's a gap, you could see if the the kid that took it in third and now is in fifth, 2 years later is now in fifth, if that slope is sort of the same to previous ones, right? We can look at that as well.
Yeah, so we would definitely be taking a look at that individual scores. We're currently doing that even with our NWEA results. So we're able to look at where the students performed, possibly the fall of, pre-pandemic versus the fall of this year. So you still had that growth model with NWEA because we did have fall scores, and then we did it again this fall. So that's helpful and reliable data for us. This would also be another data point as well as our district assessments.
Is that something we would probably see in the fall or something?
Yeah, so they're still not sure when they're going to release the scores. In the past, they've released them. Usually it's the end of June, and then they start going public at the beginning of the summer. They're anticipating that the scores will probably come to us a little bit later than in the past. So certainly, I think in the past, I've usually done like an October update to the board. So if we get the results, then we'll continue to have that October update. And we would want to look at kids who were hybrid, kids who were fully remote. I mean, there'd be different ways of us even looking at data.
Yeah, I would think you'd want it earlier too, in case you have to pivot for anything on starting the next school year for those cohorts as they move on.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we get it, we usually dive right into it, and the coordinators and the department chairs take a look at all the data and start mapping it out and pulling it together so that when the teachers come back in August, they have an opportunity to not only look at how their students performed from the previous year, but also how the new students that they have sitting in their classroom performed. And that's very helpful to us as we're mapping out our instruction.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Deanna, go ahead.
So I just had a couple questions related to the vaccination of the kids. Do you have, I know with the Pfizer vaccine, you have to be 16 or older to be able to be administered. Do we have a sense of the percentage of our eligible 16-year-olds that took the option, either through the school, through the LAPM, or through private, means?
Yeah, we haven't asked that question yet. We're going to, but again, it'd be voluntary. They could just be voluntary self-report. But when we ran an offering at the mall with a community health center, and about 200 students took advantage of that. In the one we just ran, I think it was around 300 or so that were there. But I know a large number have already gotten their vaccine through Lord and Taylor, I think it was, or is that where it was? Right over in Stanford. So people are sort of finding their own ways to do this. A number of people emailed me to say they wish they had waited, and thank you for the clinic at the high school. So we'll ask the question and see how it looks. But again, it's going to be incomplete because we'll only hear back from those who want to tell.
And then I guess as a follow-on, I had read in maybe one of the CABE updates that the state is, and I don't know if it's already passed or if it's still in, the process of removing the religious exemption for vaccinations in public schools in Connecticut. Have you heard sort of what vaccinations those are going to encompass? Is that going to encompass a COVID vaccine?
So it was signed into law by Governor Lalonde. I think that makes Connecticut one of 5 states to have only a medical exemption for vaccinations, New York being one of the others. It includes MMR, the general vaccines that folks need. It's a good question about the COVID vaccine because it's only right now, it's only emergency authorization. So do not believe that includes the COVID vaccine at this point. We're going to learn more about that. Okay. But it doesn't.
Would you go on the state website to find out which vaccines are included in that, no longer being exempted?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can get all that information.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I think it's going to encompass. It's there are going to be people that are going to want to know about that.
Oh, sure. Yep, and there is a grandfather clause, but it's for students who are currently attending school. That if we had the exemption, they're grandfathered in. but it's not for any student who's enrolling or enrolls into school as of the date that it was signed in, which was last week.
So with that, so if I understand what you're saying, all current kindergartners or people, would that include the
Next year's kindergartners could not have a religious exemption.
right? So we'll have 13 years of potential religious exemptions. Is that correct?
That's correct. It'll work its way out.
Okay.
Yep, but I'll get more information. I just haven't. Okay.
Thanks.
Other questions? I was just going to add on the point on the 16-year-old and the vaccines. I think for the 16-year-olds who took the vaccine almost immediately after the authorization, I think those kids are just coming up around last week and now for their second vaccine. So they won't be fully vaccinated for another, 3 weeks and change. And then, I imagine our numbers would start to go up in terms of kids who would be exempt from quarantine and they'll be free, I guess. So. Okay, other comments, questions? All right. I think I would just add a comment that it just, we're in May and the rules are still constantly changing with regards to sports and quarantines and testing. So we're very much, still in this, and I know it's still requiring an immense amount of focus and attention from all of you. So I just want to say, thank you. As great as the news is and as good as things are getting, the work hasn't let up. So thank you all. Next on our agenda, we have a series of action items this evening. First is on the West School Outdoor Learning Center, the phase 3. And I think we have Ms. Murphy here from West School and I think the PTC president as well. Dr. Letzi, do you want to say anything first?
Yeah, I certainly want to welcome Jan, Ashley, Erica, and Lauren in. There's very exciting next phase to the Outdoor Learning Center over at West, which I'm hoping that the board can avail ourselves of at some point for a meeting this spring outside. But I know a lot of work and thought and love has gone into putting all of this together. So let me turn it over to Jan. Jan, I think I've set it up where you can share your screen.
Yeah, let me see if I can, hang on.
I accidentally promoted Chris Wallach, so I'm going to send her back to attendee. Sorry, Chris. But while Jan is doing that, just to share how really thoughtful this process has been with the West Outdoor Learning Center. And, we talk often about it and just how powerful it is to put something in place that's there for students for a generation. I mean, it's such a meaningful legacy for the PTC. And, the leadership of the PTC rotates annually. And I had to say goodbye today to our current presidents. But, the work that Erica and Lauren and others have done, over at West will outlive their presidencies as our students are using that space and their classes are using those spaces. And West is tonight, but there are projects in the works, as I've mentioned before, at all 5 of our buildings, looking at using outdoor space and creating learning opportunities for our kids.
Okay. So for some reason, I'm not able to share my screen. Not sure why. Let's see. Here we go. Let's try this. There we go. Let's try now. Okay. I apologize for the.
There we go.
Here we go.
It's
all set up and ready to go. Here we go, right here. Okay. So I'd like to start just by saying thank you for allowing us all to be here tonight, giving us an opportunity to share our wonderful progress on our Outdoor Learning Center. I know we were here just maybe a few months ago to update you on our phase 2 portion of the project. And I'm really pleased and thrilled to let you know that we have raised the money to take us to phase 3 of the project. So very quickly,
Hey,
to give
Jan,
yes.
I'm sorry, I think you're on the previous presentation for phase 2.
Okay. I thought I just opened the one that you, let's see. This is not the right one, Erica?
No.
You're right. Okay. Let's stop sharing and let me find that one. I apologize. Erica, you don't happen to have it handy, do you?
I can send it to you. Give me one
Let's
second.
see.
Jen, I may be able to pull it up for you.
Okay.
Is it, it's what you sent just today, I think, right?
Yeah, I thought that's the one I had pulled up.
And does it start with same but different?
No, that's actually that was our COVID update that Ashley and I were going to share tonight. It's our turn.
Oh my
to do
goodness.
that.
It was?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I can share that. You want me to start with that first?
I will leave that to the board. How about if we have you join us next time?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, no worries.
My apologies. I don't think I have the other one. Oh, I think I do actually. Sorry.
I just forwarded it to both of you, Brian and Jan.
Got it. Got it. Thanks, Andrew.
You got it?
I do. Okay. Go ahead, Jen. I'll pull it right up.
Okay. All right, great. So this is what it looked like in the fall. Again, the PTC had taken a lot of time to decorate the inside of the OLC because our kids were spending so much time out there during the course of the day. It looks a lot different now in the spring. The blue sail is up again, but the flowers that are decorated everywhere in the Outdoor Learning Center now are spring flowers. So it just looks a little more spring-like today. So we can go on to the next slide.
Oh yeah, there we go. Uh-oh, there you go.
Okay. So just to give you a little bit of background, in 2018, 2019, we had a committee that came together to really just talk about what do we want to do with the Outdoor Learning Center. It was getting to be a little bit tired. A couple of structures had to be removed because of the snow in 2013, I believe. And so we developed a vision. We developed some usage and design criteria and a whole scope and sequence for the space and for the project. And in the summer of 2019, we implemented phase 1, which you can see to the right, with the pavement, the tall grasses, and then the blue sail structure. And this past winter in 2021, you graciously approved phase 2, which was for the stage, the pergola, and the seating area, and again, the reading circle. So that's sort of in process right now. So we're back here again tonight, and we can move on to the next slide. For phase 3, which is going to complete the project. And phase 3 actually consists of, here's some more pictures of the actual usage for the Outdoor Learning Center. You can see the students socially distanced out there, taking motor breaks out there, students taking mask breaks, and then students just masked working together at the picnic table. So it's really gotten, who knew, it really has gotten so much use this year. I don't know what we would have done without that space. So the next slide should show you phase 3, which is the final phase of our Outdoor Learning Center. And that is going to be the middle area, the middle portion, which is actually going to have a walkway that connects one side of the Outdoor Learning Center to the other with a labyrinth in the center with a large Westy the Whale figure sculpture. And we can turn to the next slide to show you what that will look like. And so this is the design rendering of the what we're going to call a meditation garden, where kids can go out quietly, take a break, read. There'll be a little labyrinth, like I said, some different types of seating out there. And just today, we were out there looking to find out where we could put some cameras out there so that we can make sure we monitor the space as well. But we're really very excited. We had some of the trees taken down in the space over the weekend. We have one more to go, and we're hoping to be able to start this phase 2 and then phase 3 and finish it by the beginning of the school year for next year. And the next slide shows a sculpture and support column that was designed and fabricated by professional artist and West School dad, Paul Balmer. And that's what it's going to look like, sort of a rendering of what it will look like. So Westy will be with us even in the Outdoor Learning Center. And I'm going to turn it over to Erica to talk a little bit about the phase 3, the cost estimates for phase 3.
Great, thank you. And thank you again to the board and to Dr. Lutzy for having me and Lauren come to present phase 3 of the Outdoor Learning Center. So I wanted to walk through the costs that are underlying, underlying the request to approve $103,000. The first is the hardscape. So as Jan said, we have 2 pathways that are connected to the labyrinth. The hardscape here is more expensive than we've had in the past, and that's because of the intricate nature of the labyrinth. The labyrinth itself has been designed as a single winding path that students can go outside and follow the path as it goes around and in and out and all around, and it ends at the Westy Whale. And we thought that was a really nice design element and sort of aligned with the meditative nature of the space, that you can actually have a child go out there and really walk a path and, calm and have that sort of experience in the Outdoor Learning Center. But because the labyrinth has a lot of curved stones, there are some design elements to it that mean that it's a little bit more intricate to put in, to prep the space, and then to install it. The second thing are the rubber tiles. Again, we're going to put rubber tiles in the space, so we have a little bit of that cushioned area, which is good, especially for students who may need some more like sensory feedback in the space. And because of the curving of the labyrinth, we're also going to be curving those rubber tiles around the labyrinth. So again, that's a bit of why the costs are a little bit higher here, is because it's going to be gorgeous and beautiful, but anything that's curved is going to require a little bit more time and effort to install. The third thing, plantings. So every phase of the project, we have had some plantings involved. In this case, there are perimeter plantings, and then we're also putting in some small trees. And we worked really closely with, our designer and with our project manager to make sure that we are installing plants and trees that will not get too large, because safety is obviously very important, and making sure that when a teacher takes children into the space, that they can clearly see all of the children. So we want to make sure that we're thoughtful in terms of what shrubs and small trees and plantings we put in the space. We also have a budget for irrigation. Anytime we're putting in plantings, we just want to make sure that we have a plan to maintain them. And so we've also already worked with the district on making sure that we can summarize the irrigation in the spring and then winterize the irrigation in the fall. The second to last part here, the furniture. So the furniture here, around 13,000, is for the entire space. So we haven't actually had a furniture budget in the previous phases. We weren't ready then, but now we want to be able to put in the benches, the tables, the stools, and the whiteboard in the classroom. So this is kind of covering all of the furniture that we want to be able to populate within the entire Outdoor Learning Center. And then the sculpture and support column. So we are beyond thrilled that Paul Balmer, who is a professional artist and a West dad, was willing to donate his time to fabricate the Westy Whale. And he worked with Michael Canaro, who was our architect for our landscape, our designer for the space, to come up with the shape of the whale and you know, how we're gonna do it, how we're gonna transport it, you know, all the pieces that come together to put something really beautiful in the middle of the labyrinth. And Paul was also able to connect with the studio. So the costs here are for the materials and for the studio, but not for his time. And then, as with all phases, we do have some project management fees, which are well worth it. Our project manager has been so incredibly helpful and patient, and you know, doing all of the right things that she needs to do as far as working with people both at the school and the district level to make sure that, you know, we're doing everything in the most appropriate way. So those are the costs. The one thing that's not in here, we have not included the commemorative plaque. So as Lauren's going to speak to, we've had such a great support from families, and we do want to, you know, commemorate that. But that's kind of the last phase. So we will be back at some point when we reach the end of the having done all the work to see what the plaque might look like.
And I just wanted to add, you know, from my own personal, you know, experience, we have had so much fun and joy, especially this year, with watching this project come to life. And who knew we would be using it in the ways that we have. And, you know, I said at the beginning of the school year, we sort of titled this school year our Same But Different. And one of the things that we are very proud of at West School, and I know all of our schools are, is the partnership that we have with our PTC. And one of our goals is to just continually promote a continuing exchange of ideas. And we have been so successful with this. What started off as just a very small project has just mushroomed into this wonderful outdoor learning space. So, you know, on behalf of everyone at West School, I want to say thank you to our two, you know, our PTC presidents and our past PTC presidents, because it's been a series of multiple years to really get us to the place we are. And also a huge thank you to the generous families at West School who have so willingly and generously donated money to make this project come alive. So we are really forever grateful for this. It's been a vision that, you know, we're really excited to see come into its full fruition at the end of the summer. So thank you especially to Lauren and to Erica for your tireless energy. You have been a pleasure to work with this year. It's been amazing. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jan. And I'll just very quickly chime in to round this out by echoing what both of you said. And on this final slide, so we've obviously laid out a sizable project, and none of it would be possible without the incredible support and generosity from the West School parent community, who obviously, you know, love the idea of having this space at the school for all of our children to use next year. So we owe them a tremendous amount of thanks. We're also grateful for the small team of people that have been working throughout the school year on our dedicated Outdoor Learning Center committee, if I could quickly name them. Michael Canoro, Jill Carls, Megan Gould, Elise Walters, Erica, and myself. We're so proud that we exceeded our ambitious fundraising goals, and we're so excited to hopefully receive your approval tonight. So thank you so much for your time. We look forward to delivering a fully completed outdoor learning center for the children to come back on the next school year at the end of the summer. And we hope you all will come and see it. We look forward to being able to share more about how it's transformed the learning experience at West. So thanks so much for your time. And that's all from me.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren and Erica and Jan. This is such a generous and wonderful contribution to our district and to all of the students and teachers at West. So it's amazing, and I can't wait to come and visit, and hopefully we'll be able to have a meeting, as Dr. Lutz said, there at some point. Are there any questions or other comments from the board? Deanna?
Yes, I just want to echo what a beautiful plan it is, and how exciting, what a change from when my children were there, 15 years ago. But one question I do have is, I noticed, I don't have the cost estimates in front of me, from the slide, but for the plantings, I think it's great that you've provided for irrigation. Will the planting beds need to be weeded and that kind of stuff? And how have you planned for that kind of maintenance?
Yeah, so we, going forward, we do have a small section of the PTC budget to, keep going forward. And we have a gardening committee with several folks in it that they're tasked with basically, not just the outdoor learning center, but are keeping our spaces beautiful. And they do that every year with the West School sign. We have beautiful flowers around it every spring. And so taking care of, and we're trying, and that I think Jan had said last time we were here, our goal is to make the maintenance minimal. We don't want this to be a big undertaking, but that we have provided for it both in the way of a committee and in the way of a small portion of our budget to make sure that we maintain it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But you, and Erica, just to add a little bit, you very thoughtfully planned through the architect and others how to minimize the upkeep by the paving and rubberized and other pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But so there isn't, it was a part of the design was to minimize the upkeep, right? And it's,
Mm-hmm.
Deanna saying it's so true. Just a few years ago, this was just a courtyard that was overgrown most of the time. It's amazing how it's being transformed.
Yeah, that design criteria was probably the number one thing that drove every decision that we made, was to minimize the upkeep. And we also had a problem with bees out there, so that was another reason, that part of the design. So yeah.
Great. Okay, with that, I'll ask for a motion to accept the donation from the West PTC in the amount of $103,175 in support of Phase 3 of the Outdoor Learning Center. Brendan, second. Deanna, all in favor? Okay, I see all the hands up. Thank you all again, and good luck
Thank you.
on stage. Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
Great. Thank you.
Great. More good news. We have another donation from the New Canaan All Sports Booster Club.
One sec. There we go.
Okay. This.
Great. Okay.
Do you have anything? Did you want to make a comment on that before we?
Yep, I do very briefly. As you know, the All Sports Booster Club donates each season. The donations directly related to the goals of the organization, which are to provide facility and resource enhancements for New Canaan High School athletics, recognize and celebrate athletic-related achievements by all of our NCHS student athletes and coaches, and to fund professional development. And just to share with these two amounts, it's pretty astounding. These funds go directly to coaching stipends. And they will fund 35 boys coaches and 33 girls coaches for a total of 68 coaching positions over the 2 seasons. It's really astounding what a difference the All Sports Booster Club and these donations make to the quality of our program. Because we really know when we can drive down the ratio of student athletes to coaches, we can get more instruction, more work with our kids, more time with our kids, time on the field, time learning, and continue to develop the program. So just to put some context around the numbers a little bit, when you talk about 68 coaching positions over 2 seasons provided by the Booster Club Fund.
Yeah, it's phenomenal and so impressive. And especially now, I think we all have a greater appreciation for all of these extracurricular activities. It's wonderful to see all the coaches and kids out there every afternoon. Any other comments or questions? Okay. With that, can I have a motion to accept donations from the All Sports Booster Club in the amount of $35,036.85 in support of winter coach positions and $43,021.25 in support of spring coach positions? Sherry, second. Bob, all in favor? Okay, all hands up. Thank you. Next, we have the end of year calendar and our graduation date. Dr. Letzi, do you want to?
Yeah, I thought just take a moment to hit a couple of highlights as the end of the year approaches and to talk a bit about the last day for students and faculty and staff, and the graduation day as well. As you know, this year has been a challenge, of course. Calendars have changed. We go back to the beginning of the year when we were phasing in and what things looked like, and the state changed their requirements as well, as far as the total number of days required for the school year and things. So my proposal is for June 17th to be the last day of school for students and staff. That our last day, as you know, is typically a half day. That is 178 school days for our kids. State minimum is 177 this year. So we'd be one over the minimum there, but I think it's what we've been driving towards. It is the day that's been in our calendar from the start, and I think it works well, because then what we'd look to do is have our graduation date on June 15th for the high school students, for our 12th grade graduating seniors. We plan to do that at Dunning. We're still working through the restrictions and requirements around number of attendees. But the plan is we're working it through, and Bill Egan and his team and the PFA are all meeting on this regularly and bringing things forward. But having it on the 15th, doing it earlier in the day, so that we would then have an abbreviated ceremony. So it would be shorter than usual, and then we'd still incorporate a car parade into the experience for the kids. So we're looking at what the details of that may be. And how we can pull that off, but we would look to set June 15th as that date. There are a lot of other things happening, just and it's in the spirit of not sort of settling for a pale replica of what might have been, but creating new and exciting things. So just a couple of examples we are having a senior prom this year. Whether you want to call it a senior prom or senior experience or senior get together, it's going to be at Waveney on June 17th. So the night of the last day of school, we'll have that prom. We're doing the virtual recognition ceremony for our award winners, our senior class, on May 28th. We are still doing a junior celebration. You can call it a prom if you want, celebration if you want, but on May 21st, our juniors will be able to get together and have something to celebrate together. A prom or promish experience. And on May 21st, that same day, our seniors are having a senior trip where they're going to Six Flags together to go and to spend some time. So looking to make these things special, but it's not just the high school. Sax's 8th grade ceremony, their graduation ceremony, it can't be indoors, so it's going to look different. So they're looking at June 16th and doing maybe a parade or some other type of event that they're working through the details on that. They're still having an 8th grade picnic on June 10th and 11th. Outdoor events for grades 5 through 7, in early June. Bagel breakfasts for 8th graders, parent orientations that'll be virtual. So all of those events are still happening. And even May 14th, we're looking at a walk to school day. One of the things that we're sad to see go this year was the graduate walk, where our graduates put on their regalia and went through the schools and saw the elementary students and went through. Instead of that, we've got a couple of seniors who are in Anna Moody's music tech class who have written music and are putting together a video in honor of the class of 2021 that really highlight their K through 12 experience. They've been reaching out to people to get pictures and different info, different pieces of memorabilia. So they're going to premiere this video in early June. And from what I'm hearing, at least from what Anna's telling me, it'll be even better than last year's graduation walk video. So they've been working on this and they've written their own score for it and they're pulling it together. And it should be really something special. Our elementary schools, same thing. They're having various forms of the Fare Thee Well celebrations for our 4th graders. And again, we're balancing the loosening up of some restrictions and yet keeping some other, mitigation strategies, being safe with that, so that maybe we're outside doing some things, but we're staying within our cohorts. So we're not going to have the kids mix, and we're staying safe that way. We're doing lots of activity days with kids so they can get outside and do things together and have some fun, again, in their cohorts. Some things will be virtual. We're having some virtual presentations at times, but as many outdoor activities with students as we can to, again, celebrate the end of the school year and spend some good time together. Being outside, having to be outside means you have to build in some rain dates. and be flexible if the weather doesn't cooperate. And but we're ready to do that too. So it's going to be a fabulous spring. We've got lots of things going on with our kids, lots of really fun and well, interesting, enjoyable experiences for them. And you know, we're going to end the school year the way that we started, and looking to finish strong, you know, as we go through the last couple of weeks of school. So really exciting stuff.
Great to hear. Thank you. With that, is there a motion to approve June 17th as a last day of school? Sherry, second. Julie, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay. Next is, can I have a motion to approve June 15th as the graduation date for the new Canaan High School class of 2021, with June 16th as a rain date? Jen, second. Penny, any discussion? All in favor? All right, thank you. Okay, so any comments from the public? I see there's one hand raised, a couple hands raised, Dr. Lutzy.
Okay.
And if when Dr. Lutzy moves you over, if you could please state your name clearly. Thank you.
I have DM.
My name is Domenica Monahan.
Okay.
Am I allowed to speak? Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Right.
please do.
Okay, thank you. We are very much aware of the Board of Education's research and effort on getting teen more sleeps. But what the real question is, what the Board of Education has done for the elementary age child. Where are the experts they have claimed to retain? Where are the studies that discuss the impacts of early start times on elementary age children? Through the FOIA requests, we have learned that they are indeed non-existent, as was so painfully obvious before. Let's be clear and restate that to date, there has been no specific research on how early school start time affects elementary age students. After the town council meeting last month, I spent all week contacting and conversing with community organizations, community program leaders, and experts, actual experts who have specifically studied how early school start times impact elementary age children, and not just physically, but emotionally as well. What was really fascinating about this process of reaching out was that these experts not only disagreed with this new initiative for younger children, but they were also willing to speak on behalf of these young students because they are so aware of how this change will negatively affect them. Even more concerning was the fact that while we've been told that the Board of Ed is working on programs for children after school, those community organizations or community program leaders were never even contacted. Imagine that. Organizations and programs that would be directly impacted were not even given the opportunity to be made aware about this change. I can't really be all that surprised that these organizations and programs were not made aware of the change when many families still don't even know about this proposal. These are the facts, and what we have been told is not actually what is happening here. At the workshop, it was stated that teachers all agreed that younger students learn better in the morning and struggle in the afternoon. However, no formal survey or research could be cited to make this claim valid. In reality, according to the tax-funded Hanover survey, 72% of staff disagree with the current proposal. Yet this fact is eliminated from discussions. When discussing the TAG survey, it was conveniently left out that the consultant presented 4 scenarios, noting, and this is very important, that there are many more possible. So this begs the question, why haven't they been investigated? We do have a 2-tier option that gets us from 740 to 815 for our older students, yet this is not an acceptable compromise to the proponents. And instead, it is much more reasonable to ask the younger students to adapt to an 85-minute earlier start time. Sure, we will hear that the 8:30 start time is perfection for the teens, but we aren't aiming for perfection, as was stated so many times previously. We are aiming for excellent. And a 35-minute positive adjustment sounds pretty close to excellence.
It's been 2 minutes, sorry.
Nope, that's it. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Mr. Yap. Okay. James, I think you're.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, great. Good evening, everyone. When I first found out about this new start time proposal over a year ago, maybe I was a bit naive, but I believe that many of you simply did not know what the plan was going to do to young children and families. Perhaps you'd simply forgotten what the daily challenges and rewards of raising a 5 or 6-year-old child are. Maybe you simply could not find or did not consider the precedent, science, and research warning against what this schedule change could do to our young children. But after providing all this information over the past year, as well as hearing the feedback from so many concerned parents, the plan still remains unchanged. I can unfortunately only come to one of two conclusions. Either you clearly prioritizing the wants of some high school parents over the needs of over 1,000 elementary school children, or you simply do not care about our young children at all. If that seems harsh, consider the unacknowledged desperate pleas from so many parents. Consider that many, like myself, see this as a gut punch to our families that you continue to endorse. Consider that you not only appear to refuse any compromise, but instead help propagate some of the fabricated support for the current proposal. I mean, come on, optimal learning time? If you describe how you got that term to any high school student, they will find it comical. I think it is really beneath members of the board to promote this as research or even a survey. Also consider that despite your claims of years of research, there appears to be no research on the effects of early starts on elementary school children in your analysis. If you've done the work, where is it? It certainly does not appear to be on your website. I also question your claims of considering feedback from the community. Please recall the Hanover study, where this plan is the most strongly opposed of the 5 plans offered, the October roundtable, where this plan is the lowest scoring of 3 alternatives. And after finally announcing the intended schedule change last January, you created scenario B and asked hundreds of parents to take a survey on the option. You appear to have independently decided to stick to the current plan anyway. So please remind me how you considered community feedback in coming to this proposal. I remind you that consideration of feedback is not simply listening to it and doing the opposite. Now, if you truly care about young children in our town, listen to the feedback and come to a better solution that may not be perfect for high schoolers, but better for all. At a minimum, can you please email parents about the proposed change? Many have heard nothing about this change since last January. This cannot be anything less than withholding information from people who would be most drastically affected.
Sorry, it's been 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Yep, thanks, Ms. Reeves.
Thanks.
Okay. I think that's it. So we'll move on to announcements and future business. Dr. Lutzi, any announcements? I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Trying to drown out my dog barking in the background. But announcements. So at the workshop last week, the Board of Ed affirmed its commitment to improving school start times and making change. And additionally, the board committed to reviewing a few select scenarios this month before moving into the implementation phase. So I'm pleased to share that the timeline about making a final decision this month is after meeting with DATCO. That will work as far as sourcing the buses in time. So we're busily preparing for our next Board of Education meeting, where we'll be able to share the routes, some times, with more specificity, and look forward to that discussion at our upcoming meeting. Just additionally, a few folks have asked about the potential referendum and its potential impact about this decision. So I just want to share that Claudia Weber, the town clerk, has recently put out an FAQ that may be helpful. And if you haven't seen it, certainly I have a copy. I'm glad to share it with you. But in the FAQ, she writes that, to her understanding, the town can't dictate how the Board of Education spends its money. The town can only approve or disapprove the total amount appropriated to the Board of Ed. So she goes on to say a referendum cannot be called on a Board of Education line item. So I share that only because, given that feedback from Claudia, we should continue to move confidently forward in our discussions and our work, and putting together the implementation committee, as we had spoken about at the meeting last week, so that we can continue moving forward and making the decisions that need to be made. So at our next meeting on the 17th, we'll have information to share about the couple of different scenarios, more updates. Again, Roy is working hard to pull all this together. If there are any bumps in the road and we're not able to make that deadline, I'll certainly let you know. But otherwise, we look forward to the dialogue there. And that's it.
Okay. Great. Thanks for the update. With that, can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Brendan, second. Jen, all in favor? Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Okay. Thank you.